thanks for the opportunity to yourself and to PSI for being able to come in and speak about our campaign, the More Power to You campaign. Just to say a couple of things on it. It's Fórsa are a member of a group of unions who work on this campaign. So we work in partnership with SIP2 and with Connect Trade Union. So collectively we represent about 30,000 members in local authorities across the country. And I suppose the nexus or the origin of this campaign was around a response to the fact that either through privatisation or through the removal of municipal level power, local government in Ireland has become weaker and weaker as time has gone on. So we are among the weakest local government structures in all of Europe. And this campaign is largely about addressing that. So we conducted, the first thing we done was, obviously there was a lot of knowledge around this, but we crystallized that in the form of a report called Democracy Works If You Let It, which analysed where we were, where our European counterparts were, and outlined essentially some of the steps we could take to do that. So the first phase of the campaign was ran in 2019, and it was around the idea of starting a conversation about local government services and local government power. So to 2019, we ran our first local and European elections, or we had local and European elections, pardon me, and we ran a pledge not similar to the one our comrade in Australia was talking about, asking candidates and political parties to sign up to the campaign, its objectives, etc., etc. That led on then to a general election campaign, because as I outlined earlier, a lot of our power was hollowed out. So we needed national support from national political parties in order to address a lot of the problems that have appeared over the last 20 or 30 years. And our local government parties are broadly reflected at a national level. So it's kind of, if you had support of one, you normally had it of the other as well. And obviously remunicipalisation, and in particular, specifically remunicipalisation of waste services formed a big part of, or has formed a big part of that conversation. Just, I suppose, this is a slide that outlines where we are as where we are in a European standpoint. So Ireland has a much smaller spend at local government level than our European counterparts. So for example, I'm a councillor for Dublin City Council. Our annual budget is about €1 billion. If we were at the European average level for local government spend, that would be €3 billion. So it just goes to illustrate how far, and that's right across the board, it goes to illustrate how far things have fallen, or how bad things are for us at local government level. This is another slide that just outlines turnout over a period from 1974 to 2014. So it's a gradually decreasing engagement with the process of local elections and things like that. So following on from that, we've launched, we kind of delayed it because of COVID, but it's launched now, the second phase of our campaign, which essentially has a number of strands associated with it. The first being that we're briefing each of the 31 local authorities. So we'll brief both the staff and the elected officials, because a lot of that will require collaboration on that, from that collaboration to succeed in the objectives of the campaign. We're feeding into local development plans. So you probably have these yourselves, where it's just a plan for that municipality for a period of 6 or 8 years. It takes 2 years to write those, and some of our objectives will be met as a result of feeding into those plans. We're developing frameworks locally. So Dublin City Council has a remunicipalisation subgroup for waste services. We privatised our waste services in 2012, and we're now we're now trying to remunicipalise. That subgroup, which is formally recognised as Dublin City Council, exists because this campaign pushed it, and the parties who signed up to it followed through on the pledge. I actually sit on that group as well. As I mentioned before, there's a significant body of national lobbying required for the aims and objectives of the campaign to be addressed. I suppose tackling outsourcing, bringing insourcing onto the field, and remunicipalising old services are emerging as a significant piece of the campaign in terms of what we're hoping to achieve. I suppose to illustrate where we're at and how things have developed over the last year, the staff complement in local authorities in Ireland is on average 20% less than it was 12 years ago. So that's because that's for a number of different reasons. Another issue is that we do not have significant numbers of apprentices. There are 40 apprentices in service nationally in Ireland, and most of those are in the 4 Dublin local authorities. And we obviously, I know it was great to hear from Andy and others today around the efforts that have been the global efforts, because we've relied heavily on saying to politicians who probably wouldn't normally engage with this kind of conversation, to say, look, this is happening all over the place. It is successful. It's something that's been examined across. It's not just something we come up with, essentially, and that has been very helpful. Being able to look at our international counterparts is something that has been very helpful. Obviously, this is some of the challenges that exist. I think the last point here, in terms of secure employment for the local community, I think that that's going to emerge as the most significant part of this campaign in the coming years, especially in rural Ireland, where there's just, you may or may not be aware about Ireland's reliance on foreign direct investment and how that has shaped national legislation, national policy, and I suppose we have essentially taken our eye off the ball in terms of a strong foundation on which to build locally financed and locally sourced employment opportunities in the community. So I think that that's going to become a much bigger part of the conversation as time goes on. We have used, obviously, the pandemic as an example to indicate how flexible and how big the capacity of local authorities is in terms of providing local service. So the initial, basically, we repeatedly looked to local authorities to address issues around cycling infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, to provide essentially an entire suite of services that were previously not considered possible for the local authority to provide. I'll finish now on this. These are our 5 key points. It's democracy, energy, waste, housing, and water. These are the second phase has these current objectives under each of them. So we're essentially trying to do one thing under each of the 5 pillars as part of this phase, and then that will build on in the next phase and will develop over a period of time. But that is it. I'll finish on that. So thanks very much, and thanks for the opportunity to both listen to you and present to you today.